Hi folks, it's Kermit the Frog here, and today we are going to be learning about amphibians! Hooray! Now, as you all know, I happen to be an amphibian, and...
No, monster amphibians.
What? Say that again?
Monster amphibians, Kermit.
We are going to be learning about monster amphibians? Okay. Well, can you give me an example, Jake?
Look to your right, your other right.
What the heck? Oh, no, this is where I draw the line. No. No, you want to talk about this kind of spooky stuff? Knock yourself out. Nope. I'm not gonna touch that with a 20-foot pole, folks. Eee.
Welcome back to the RRN Ropin Radio Network, Salem's first cryptozoological network. We are broadcasting from the heart of Oregon, Salem's capital. I have a new liaison, folks. He will be running the social network accounts. To clarify further, I no longer have to worry about emails or messages. He'll now be in charge of those. But if for some reason you are unable to reach me or you feel your voice is not being heard, then I would need to know. The last thing I want is for people to be shunned on this network. However, let me clarify a little bit more. If you are one of those individuals who feels that you need to try to sway everyone to your personal opinion and you're trying very hard to do that, it would be best that you start your own channel, okay? We will not put up with that here. We express who we are, what we believe, and that's all there is to it, okay? Well, time is certainly flying by as we are now in the month of June, and for this particular go-round, I've decided to tackle the subject of myths and legends. For those who are familiar with this network, you would probably say, isn't that what you discuss all the time? No, we do not. The subject matter of this field, whether you choose to believe it or not, mostly deals with the credible, the factual information. Now, some of this comes to us via archaeological discoveries, while others, no matter how fantastic they are, may be word of mouth, eyewitness testimony, all right? So what is the difference between myth and legend? A myth is a type of symbolic storytelling that was never based on fact. Throughout time, myths have sought to explain difficult concepts, the origin of the universe, with the help of common story devices such as personification and allegories. Well, that kind of sounds like evolution, doesn't it? Anyway, in contrast, a legend is presumed to have some basis in historical fact and tends to mention real people or events. Historical fact morphs into legend when the truth has been exaggerated to the point that real people or events have taken on romanticized, larger-than-life quality. Okay, our topic today could find some commonality between these two words. No doubt this is a far cry from what we mostly discuss on this network. Still, it could hold some significance in relation to other beings that are associated within the realm of cryptozoology. I understand that there are many monsters associated with this research that contain the word man, and this creature is no exception. This is the case of the Loveland Frogman. Is it as crazy as it sounds? Let's find out. Loveland is a city in Hamilton, Claremont, and Warren counties in the southwestern part of the U.S. state of Ohio. Before this Cincinnati suburb became the city it is today, Loveland was first and foremost an area of picturesque valleys, rich soil, and the scenic Little Miami River. The area was first settled in 1795 by Colonel Thomas Paxton. Loveland is known for its ideal setting along the Little Miami River, where you can discover its famous bike trails and the unforgettable adventures, attractions, and art galleries along the way. You can even savor some of the menus from every mood, from barbecue to locally brewed beers to craft cocktails and gourmet meals. Ha, that sounds enticing. A little bit like Texas, wouldn't you say? So now let's get into this frogman creature. Is it just a one-time thing where someone just saw it and that was it? Or are there multiple accounts here enough to where we can go off of for a little bit of research? Let's find out. So here we have 3, maybe 4 or 5 encounters, but we'll find out if they really are legit, if there's something to these, okay? And is there any modern-day sightings? Yes, there is. Well, let's go all the way back, folks, to 1955. The Loveland frog is known to live in Clermont County, Ohio. The creature lives in a temperate forest and is able to survive the cold winters of the region without having to hibernate. These amphibious anomalies have shocked and terrified both businessmen, farmers, and police officers, and remain one of the most intriguing cryptozoological mysteries in the United States. The frogmen apparently have the physical ability to use sticks like tools. However, they also have an ability as they can use their sticks to emit sparks like a wand. This could mean that the frogs have an ability to control electricity in some way. Forgive me. Did they say a wand? Okay. No jokes. Jokes aside here, I have heard of this case before, but not this much in storytelling up until this time. I'm finally getting a picture of this in my mind of a frog holding a wand. Let's keep going, okay? Here's the first sighting. One of the most intriguing cases encountered is that of the Loveland frogmen, or Loveland lizards. Okay, so they're also known by lizards. Well, that wouldn't make them amphibian. The story of these unique creatures begins in May of 1955 on a lonely stretch of road that runs along the Miami River in Clermont County, just on the outskirts of a small town known as Loveland, Ohio. At approximately 3:30 a.m., a businessman named Robert Honeycutt claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal quasi-reptilian entities congregating by the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the curb, and he observed these creatures for what he estimated to be about 3 minutes. That's a long time. During this time, he noticed that these strange beings stood about 3 to 4 feet tall, were covered with gray, leathery skin, and had webbed hands and feet. The most distinguishing characteristic, however, was their distinctively frog-like heads, which the man claimed bore deep wrinkles where their hair should have been. So just as the man was about to steal away, one of the creatures suddenly held what the witness could only describe as a wand over its head. The anonymous source further claimed the sparks spewed out of the end of the device. He left post-haste. So was that some sort of threatening manner to say, hey, look, you've intruded, and we're holding this rod, and I'm going to point it at you? I will say that the stories do change here and there, and this is the case with journalism. If you have dozens of newspaper articles, they're not all on par with each other. I know this firsthand because I went looking for so many accounts related to Enfield. As with most cases, you have a person, you have a thing, and you have a place. Person, place, and thing. Over by a river system formed in some sort of occult seance fashion. Not very tall, and in some reports have them wearing pants. Does this sound a little familiar, folks? A possibility that these creatures may be shapeshifters of some sort? If you accept or believe in shapeshifting, which is another part of sorcery, okay? Now, a simple explanation is this. The man was drunk. Well, That's not unheard of, but I don't like to say that's the case for a lot of people because it's almost like a slap in the face to them. They're reporting what they saw. This man was driving along this road around 3 a.m. in the morning, and he saw these things. He reported it. But I find it interesting with this sketch. Take a look. You have something that has a very round stomach and its proportions there. Maybe potentially some long arms, but it's holding a staff. They don't really look like reptilians or amphibians to me. But this is just the drawing. He's not an expert artist. This is what he saw. All right? All this plays into effect of what is to come next. Second sighting. About 1 a.m. on March 3rd, 1972, nearly 17 years after the first report, a police officer who understandably chose to remain anonymous was traveling along Riverside Road. Keep this in mind. We'll take a look at Riverside Road, heading towards Loveland, when he saw something that would forever change his life. The officer claimed that he was driving slowly due to a substantial amount of ice on the road when he saw what looked like a dog by the curb. A dog? Okay. Suddenly, the animal darted in front of the cruiser, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes in order to avoid a potential collision with the creature. Once the police cruiser came to a halt, its headlights fell upon the prone animal. At this point, the officer described something that seems literally too bizarre to be true. In the span of seconds, the crouched frog-like creature stood on two legs, stared back at the officer, then scrambled over the guardrail and scurried down the embankment, finally disappearing into the Ohio River. The officer in question described the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing in the area of 50 to 75 pounds. He also claimed that the skin had a leathery texture, just like the first person Robert Honeycutt, and that the animal's features resembled those of a frog or lizard. Another officer investigated the scene later that evening. He saw no sign of the creature, but reported that there was a distinct scratch marks on the guardrail where the animal reportedly crossed. Okay, this would have been great if they were able to go back and take pictures of those scratch marks. That would have been great. Or maybe get some sort of sample, but who's willing to believe this story now? Enough to go out and say, hey, we're going to go look at this guardrail. Tell me what you saw. We're going to go look at it, take some pictures, get some samples. I don't think that was taken care of, folks. I don't think they thought to do such a thing even back then. Okay, so this second sighting in March of 1972. This creature's over by the guardrail, comes up out of the river, crosses, but leaves marks. Bipedal, though. Now, is it possible that what this man saw was probably just a living dinosaur? But it doesn't mention a tail. Perhaps maybe the creature was some sort of winged fiend, and he didn't mention the wings either. But it's reptile. It's reptile. It's a lizard. Amphibian, maybe. All these things that we have to keep in mind. Now, I'm just wondering how many people believed him. So he describes all this to somebody, but who did he tell? Was it the chief of police in the area, in his district, or at that precinct? It could have been. But the creature wasn't dead. It just scurried along. So you had no carcass, no body. But do we have something like that? Is there a story about that? Let's find out. Third sighting. The next sighting occurred 2 weeks later while police officer Mark Matthews had an encounter of his own. 2 weeks later. According to the report, Officer Matthews, while driving in Loveland, spotted what he believed to be an injured animal lying on the pavement. Okay, we've got something now. Matthews climbed out of his cruiser with his intention of removing the carcass from the already ice-slicked road. We're still in the month of March, when the creature abruptly lurched upwards into a crouched position. Taken aback by the frogman's reptilian visage, Matthews unholstered his revolver and took a shot at the creature, which then proceeded to hobble over the side of the road and step over the guardrail, all the while keeping a watchful eye on the trigger-happy officer. Matthews Frogman matched the first officer's description down to the last detail, with the exception of a tail, which was absent in earlier reports. Okay, if you are from a small town and you're not familiar with any of these strange anomalies, but here we are in 1972, in March of 1972, if it was, and people have brought this up to me, if this was a lost dinosaur, don't you think you know what a dinosaur is? Don't you think you would know the word prehistoric? Wouldn't something like this come to mind, especially with a tail? But that's not what we're getting here. We're getting some sort of amphibian creature with a tail. But frogs don't have tails. Lizards do. So could be a misidentification as far as frog and lizard, but still bipedal, climbing over the guardrail. Very, very interesting. In the years which have followed these events, Officer Matthews was wrenched somewhat on his tail. He now claims that the animal in question was nothing more than a large reptile, which escaped from its owner. He further insists that the only reason he shot at the creature was to help confirm a fellow officer's story, a story which was, of course, being met with predictable skepticism by their superiors. Let me chime in here. If it's met with skepticism and ridicule, I can see why he changed his story, to get people to leave him alone. Obviously, he was so disturbed by what he saw that he jumped back and was ready to shoot. I don't think a regular lizard would make you want to do that, maybe depending on the size of the lizard or the reptile. Okay. Whether or not Matthews' change of heart was inspired by ridicule or the fading memory of an event from which he was 30 years removed, the fact remains that his own testimony counterindicates his later retraction. In a 2001 email interview, Officer Mark Matthews, now retired, explained that the incident was habitually blown out of proportion. He stated that it was and is no monster. It was not leathery or had wet matted fur. It was not 3 to 5 feet tall. It did not stand erect. The animal I saw was obviously some type of lizard that someone had as a pet that either got too large for its aquarium, escaped by accident, or they simply got tired of it. It was less than 3 feet in length, ran across the road, and was probably blinded by my headlights. It presented no aggressive action. Of course not. Matthews' attempt to shoot the creature in order to back up the account of his partner's sighting a few nights prior, but the lizard escaped, most likely to die from its injury or from the bitter freezing cold. Okay. But it still got up and ran. Now we know that lizards can run on 2 legs. So this must have been, we're not talking about maybe your simple lizard that gets really large, like some of these ones you can keep in a aquarium, whatever, what they described. But what gets me is it still ran on 2 legs. Now, this is all very likely the case that this is just a mistaken identity, and it sure is pointing that direction. But again, stories are fabricated. They're blown out of proportion, as he said, in order to make it more appealing. We had talked about this when it comes to journalism, folks. Perhaps in order to avoid all of the ridicule that comes from this, maybe he just decided to change the story. But I find it interesting he had his gun out, was ready to shoot this thing, which he did. Something that would be potentially scary. If you saw a lizard on the road, would you be absolutely frightened? I think I probably would be if, depending on the size of this thing. 4th sighting. A frogman was spotted in mid-August 2016 by Sam Jacobs and his girlfriend while they were playing Pokemon Go in Cincinnati. The location of the sighting casts doubt on its authenticity. There is a lack of precedent for the bipedal frog. Additionally, the frogman lives in Ohio, which is a very human-populated region of the United States of America. The creature is only known from one specific region, and there is seemingly no Native American folklore of this creature. At least not in these parts, all right, folks? There is no video evidence that did not come from the suspicious encounter, and the creature seems to have unusual, perhaps supernatural abilities. Possible explanation. I agree with this. If these things are shapeshifters, if these things are some sort of spirits, they can do whatever the heck they want, all right? While there are no known bipedal frogs in nature, it is also possible that these frog species often rest in a position with only their hind legs on the ground, make them look bipedal. It is very unlikely for a frog species to have the intelligence necessary for tool use, but somewhat more likely that the Loveland frogmen are a frog species, intelligent enough to collect objects, possibly to create a structure to live in or as a mating display, similar to some bird species. And there are two images here that potentially have something here for us to look at, something here for us to examine. And I got to tell you, anything can be fabricated these days. One solid picture isn't going to really do it. But the best thing you can do is say, hey, I've got an image. Don't tamper with it. Keep the original, send it off and see if it can be analyzed and see if it is a fraud, see if it is a hoax. But there's definitely something here. We got some eye shine in this one that appears to be in the river itself. I wonder if this is the Miami River that it's in. How legit is this image? Folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have more to discuss. How many of you are familiar with the frogs in your state? And how many of these frogs, cute and cuddly, are potentially poisonous? We're going to find out. You are listening to Cryptozoological Talk on the RRN Ropen Radio Network. We'll be right back. If you are looking for tactical supplies, look no further than 911 Supply, located in Kaiser, Oregon. They have everything from hats, jackets, belts, pants from the 511 brand, and gloves. I got their pair of pants. I used them in Arkansas. Kept me warm the entire time. So the next time you're out looking for your monster, make sure you have the right gear. Gets the job done. 911 Supply for all your tactical needs.
We never know when life will test us, when danger will round the corner, when we will be called upon to act with everything on the line. But being prepared gives us the confidence to excel when our whole world hangs in the balance. 511 Tactical. Always be ready.
Your exclusive home for Cryptozoological Talk, the RRN, Salem, Oregon. Let's seek the truth. Men were wearing pants. Believe it or not, as funny as that sounds, folks, I have heard of other accounts mostly involving ufology, where there are these amazing beings that are in some sort of suits of some sort. And some of them are shirtless, some of them are wearing pants, and some of them aren't very tall, some of them are very tall. They're humanoid-like. Again, I have to wonder if some of this involves sorcery that we are familiar with. Shape-shifting, I believe, is a real thing. That's difficult for people to accept. I get it. You know, this is society we live in, where we think that what we see is what there is. But that's not always the case. Just how many types of lizards are there in this great state of Ohio? There are 10 species, subspecies, representing 7 genus found in Ohio, with 5 species being introduced. Now, if we were talking about lizards, we can also talk about frogs, can't we? There are 14 species of subspecies representing 6 genus found in Ohio, all of which are native to the United States. The top 5 most poisonous frogs in the world, you're going to like this, folks. Even though they look as beautiful as they are, they can be very dangerous. Number 1 on our list is the strawberry poison dart frog, a beautiful strawberry color with those black spots across their body. These guys are well named and easy to spot. They tend to live in a little further north than other tree frogs. So they are tree frogs, favoring areas of Central America such as Nicaragua, Panama, rather than the jungle regions further south. They are one of the smaller varieties of frogs on our list. Coming in at approximately 25 millimeters, or about 1 inch in length. Once again, be careful in touching these guys as they are covered in alkaloid. Okay, so it's poisonous toxins that are known to cause paralysis and affect the functions of the heart given their coloration. It's probably fair to say that you've been warned. Number 4, the cocoa poison dart frog, another inhabitant of the rainforest regions of Central America. The cocoa poison dart frog features an amazing color scheme across its body of yellow stripes over the black and green speckled legs. They are a little unusual with regard to other tree frogs of the region, that when looking for a mate, the males will have a kind of virtual sing-off rather than a wrestling match. Have a sing-off, which is a more common way of settling such issues. Their toxins is one of the most potent, resulting from paralysis of the muscles and then potential death. That said, this only seems to apply to frogs in the wild and not to those raised in captivity, something scientists are still researching. At number 3 on the list is the dying poison dart frog. Like many of the other frogs on this list, the dying and poison dart frog also lives in the rainforest areas of South America, and in particular, Guyana in Brazil. Unlike some of the other frogs here, you'd really need to ingest the frog in some way to appreciate just how toxic it really can be. Although doing so is probably not such a good idea, as the little guy is more than capable of killing a human. Number 2 is the golden poison dart frog, dying poison dart frogs. Known to inhabit the rainforest region along the Pacific coast of Colombia, the golden poison dart frog could well be described as one of the most poisonous frogs known to mankind. This particular species of dart frog, so named because the local indigenous people use its poison on their darts for hunting. Okay. So remember, you got those darts, you shoot them across. That's those poison darts that you see. It is the largest of its kind at just over 55 millimeters long, and as the name would suggest, it is a bright golden color, warning potential predators to stay away. It has a dense coating of what is known as a alkaloid toxin covering its skin. This means you only have to touch the frog to put yourself in serious danger. Oh, wow. This chap is thought to carry about 1 milligram of poison, which, although it might not sound like much, is in fact enough to kill up to 20 humans or 2 fully grown African male elephants. Thankfully, there are only known to be 2 other frogs from the same species that carry the same amount of poison. As long as you can stay away from bright-colored frogs, the next time you visit the Colombian rainforest, you should be fine. All right, folks. Now the number 1 on our list, which is the Bruno casque-headed frog. Where most of the frogs on our list will secrete a poison of a kind, passive defensive way, this guy actively uses his poison to kill his prey. As such, these aren't officially poisonous but venomous instead. To give you an idea of just how deadly these little guys are, the venom that they can inject through spiny spikes on their head is said to be about 20 times more deadly than that of a fer de lance pit viper, one of the most deadly snakes in the world. Wow. In other words, 1 gram of this guy's venom could be enough to wipe out 250,000 mice, or more than 70 humans. So if you happen to find yourself in and around the rainforest areas of Brazil, stay well away from these frogs. Wow, how about that? Gives you a little bit more understanding about these amazing amphibians that are out there. And most of these have been seen in the rainforest of South America. So the most deadliest frog is something that's well out of your reach. But again, if you're going to be an explorer and you're going to go out in these areas, be mindful of your amphibians. This leads me to bring up this question that I've asked many times. If amphibians are poisonous, yes. If reptiles are poisonous, some, yes, very few. Could pterosaurs also be poisonous as well? As far as the archaeological evidence and the paleontology work that's been brought forth, there hasn't been anything to link poisonous abilities from these creatures that the paleontologists have been able to find yet. I sure hope they find something soon. I think there's a good possibility that some of these variations of pterodactyloids or pterosaurs possess this capability. If they do, this is a whole new ballgame, and a dangerous one at that. So let's go back for a moment here when we talk about the Loveland Frogman. We have either mistaken identity, we have something that may be a myth, or we have something that's possibly a legend. If you go down to Loveland, Ohio, they absolutely consider this thing a local legend. They have some great events that they showcase where they will have the actual Loveland Frogman Festival that you can go down and see in March. I have often thought about journeying out to Loveland to see the community and just look at the whereabouts, but that's not really my main focus is Loveland itself. I think the Little Miami River is crucial to research. There may be quite a bit of creatures in that area that are worth investigating because there are other different reports. But I lean the direction of more local legend for this thing because the bottom line is somebody saw something. And it wasn't just one person with one night of a night sighting. It's multiple people. Something like that gives more interest, adds to the credibility of such a case. In many ways, it probably is just mistaken identity, and I would agree with this. But there's no doubt that the people there believe strongly that this is a local legend, and I agree with them. It is a local legend. It's spreading. People talk about it all the time. There have been some recent sightings, but we don't really know how credible those are. It could be just a prank. You can counterfeit things these days. CGI plays a good hand in all of this, so... If you are planning to go to Loveland, go in March. I think you might enjoy the festival that they have there. Really, really entertaining, very interesting. Folks, we are now moving on to the next segment of our show. So let's go all the way to Japan. Now, for those who love the stories that come from Japan, they've made some amazing anime over the years. And they have their local legend. They have their fan favorite with Goji, or what we also know as Godzilla. Japan's known for a lot of folklore. They're known for a lot of myths. They're known for a lot of legends. The next creature we're going to discuss, is this thing a legend? Or is it just a myth, something made up to scare people, kind of like the boogeyman of Illinois, or the Boggerman of Illinois? I don't know. There's something very disturbing about this next case. And if those who are not familiar with it, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Kappa. Now, Kappa are said to be roughly humanoid in form and about the size of a child, inhabiting the ponds and rivers of Japan. They're clumsy on land. They're at home in the water and thrive during the warm months. They are typically greenish in color, or yellow or blue, and either scaly or slimy skinned with webbed hands and feet, and a turtle-like carapace on their back. Despite their small stature, they are physically stronger than a grown man. That wouldn't be surprising. The Kappa are sometimes said to smell like fish, and they can swim like them. According to some accounts, a Kappa arms A kappa's arms are connected to each other through the torso and can slide from one side to the other. While they are primarily water creatures, they do on one occasion venture out into land. When they do, the dish on their head can be covered with a metal cap for their protection. This is very interesting. Look at this image here. The dish on their head can be covered with a metal cap for protection. A hairy kappa is called a hiosubi. The word kappa is translated to river child, also known as kawataro, river boy, kamahiki, horse puller. The kappa is a reptiloid kami with similarities to a yokai found in traditional Japanese folklore. Kappa can become very harmful when they are not respected as gods. They are typically depicted as green human-like beings with webbed hands and feet and turtle-like carapaces on their backs. A depression on its head, called its dish, sara, retains water, and if this is damaged or its liquid is lost, either through spilling or drying up, the kappa is severely weakened. They want to be known as gods. That's a dead giveaway right there for those of you who are Bible-believing folk. That can tell you something about that. But, look, the Japanese, they had all kinds of legends, myths and legends out there. So they've actually kind of just, a lot of these things that they have in their folklore and their tellings, they kind of just lift them up on a pedestal because it's part of their history. This is what they know. But for us, when you hear that something wants to be deified, that's a red flag. How about the diets of the kappa? Well, the kappa are known for favoring cucumbers and love to engage in sumo wrestling. Well, not surprising. Japan's known for sumo wrestling. Who's going to be the next Yokozuna? Would it be a kappa? They are often accused of assaulting humans in water and removing a mythical organ called the shiri kadama from their victim's anus. Ugh. Okay, I'm not going to read that again. Okay, their organ called the shiri kadama. Okay. All right. Also, translation of kappas, water spirits. They are also known regionally by at least 8 other names, such as kawappa. So Kawappa. Ugh. Is that just one interpretation of the diet? Cucumbers, but they love to remove organs. Let's look at the behavior here. Kappa are usually seen as kami, K-A-M-I, of the water. Their actions range from minor misdemeanors, such as looking at women's kimonos, if they venture too far near to the water, to outright malevolence, such as drowning people and animals, kidnapping children, raping women, and many times eating human flesh. Though sometimes menacing, they may also behave amicably towards humans. While younger kappa are frequently found in family groups, adult kappa live solitary lives. However, it is common for kappa to befriend other yokai and sometimes even people, if you do what they want you to do. Now, as a menace, as water monsters, kappa have been blamed for drownings and are often said to try and lure people into water and pull them in with their great skill at wrestling. So they have a skill of wrestling. They are sometimes said to take their victims for the purpose of drinking their blood. Kappa have been used to warn children of the dangers lurking in the rivers and lakes. So in other words, you can say, hey, don't venture in there. I'm telling you not to do that because a kappa will get you. Kind of like the boogeyman. You better be good. The boogeyman's going to get you. It has been often said to try to lure people to water and pull them in. Even today, signs warning about kappa appear by bodies of water in some Japanese towns and villages. So they have signs of these things. So how do we defeat some sort of menace like this? Okay, what's some of the lore? It was said to believe that there are a few means of escape if one was confronted with a kappa. Kappa are obsessed with politeness. So if a person makes a deep bow, it will return the gesture. So if you bow, it bows too. This results in the kappa spilling the water held in the dish from its head, the sera, on its head, rendering it unable to leave the bowing position until the plate is refilled with water from the river in which it lives. If a person refills it, the kappa will serve that person for all eternity, because you showed mercy to it. A similar weakness of the kappa involves its arms, which can be easily pulled from its body. If an arm is detached, the kappa will perform favors or share knowledge in exchange for its return. So, if you bow to this creature, it will bow back, but it will lose its dish. And if you replenish it, it will become your slave for eternity because you showed mercy to the creature. But you can also pull the arms off these things, making it very weak. But if you confront it in the water, this thing's going to kill you. They have a lot greater strength within the river systems. This sure seems like myth to me, as an attempt to warn or to scare. So are there any sightings of these creatures for in modern day? Is this not leaning towards myth only? Is there something to back it up? Let's find out. Now, some say kappa, a mythical Japanese water creature in remote areas like the Fukuoka Prefecture and the Kappabuchi in Tona, Iwate Prefecture. Kappabuchi is a popular destination for tourists who want to see kappa. Okay, so if you're a tourist and you want to see kappa, this is where you would go. Kappabuchi, Kappabuchi. Kappabuchi is a popular destination for tourists who want to see kappa. And some say the creatures still live there today. However, sightings are relatively rare. Let's take a look. 1. Recent sighting reports and encounters. Kappa sightings, real-life encounters with the water spirits. So in recent years, there has been a surge of reported sightings and encounters with the enigmatic creature known as a kappa. This mythological water spirit, deeply rooted in Japanese folklore, has captured the curiosity and imagination of many. From rural villages to bustling cities, these modern-day encounters with the kappa have left witnesses both fascinated and perplexed. In this section, we will dive into some of the most intriguing recent reports and encounters, shedding light on this mysterious nature of the kappa. A kappa in the city of Tokyo. This is an incident, folks. One of the most astonishing recent sightings of the kappa occurred in the heart of Tokyo, a bustling metropolis far removed from the traditional rural settings associated with these mythological creatures. In this case, a group of friends were enjoying an evening stroll along the Sumida River when I'll make sure I said that right, Sumida, Sumida River, where they noticed a disturbance in the water. To their astonishment, a kappa emerged in a scaly green glimmering under the city lights. The witnesses described its distinctive features, including the beak-like mouth and the iconic concave bowl on its head. So, just as depicted, according to the legends. This sighting serves as a reminder that kappa sightings can occur even in unexpected urban environments. Here's some encounters in the rural villages. The case of Yamaguchi. While urban sightings may be rare, the kappa is still commonly associated with the rural areas, particularly those near bodies of water, in the village of Yamaguchi, located in the mountainous region of Japan. A series of encounters with the kappa have been reported by locals. These encounters often involve the kappa attempting to lure unsuspecting individuals into the water, as per the creature's traditional lore. The villagers have since developed their own set of precautions, including wearing iron objects and bowing deeply to show respect when near bodies of water to ward off the mischievous kappa. Okay, I'm getting an understanding here. We'll get to it. Conservation efforts. The case of Lake Biwa, B-I-W-A, Biwa? Okay. In recent years, there has been a growing interest in preserving and protecting the inhabitants associated with the kappa. One notable case is the conservation efforts centered around Lake Biwa, Japan's largest freshwater lake, and rumored home to a population of kappa. Environmental organizations and local communities have joined forces to raise awareness about the importance of maintaining the lake's ecosystem. So through educational programs and wildlife conservation initiatives, these efforts claim to foster a harmonious coexistence between humans and kappa. Okay. Tips for kappa enthusiasts. Responsible sightseeing. Be responsible. For those who wish to embark on their own kappa-seeking adventures, it is essential to approach the subject with respect and responsibility. There are a few tips to keep in mind. Educate yourself, familiarize yourself with the folklore and legends surrounding the kappa. We just went over some of that. Understanding their behavior and characteristics will enhance your chances of recognizing a potential sighting. Be mindful of your environment. Whether exploring rural or urban areas, always be conscious of your surroundings and the impact of your actions. Avoid littering or disturbing natural habitats, as this can disrupt the delicate balance ecosystems where the kappa might reside. Engage in local communities. When visiting areas known for kappa sightings, engage with local residents and learn from their experience. Their insights, knowledge can provide valuable guidance in your own quest to encounter the kappa. So modern kappa sightings continue to intrigue and captivate individuals around the world, from urban encounters to rural legends. These reports offer a glimpse into the enduring allure of this mythological water spirit by respecting their folklore, preserving their habitats, and approaching the subject responsibly. We can continue to appreciate and learn from these real-life encounters. So some good history on this enigmatic kappa. A monster, no doubt, that's a part of Japanese folklore, myth, and legend. I have to wonder just how much here is really just myth, because it stems from somewhere, doesn't it? But again, we've already distinguished between myth and legend, and what's made up and what isn't. We know where legend goes. I have a theory about this, and I'm going to share it. But before we do, we're going to take our last break. You're listening to Cryptozoological Talk on the RRN Ropen Radio Network. We will be right back with the Amphibian Terror. Don't go away. We are back on the RRN Ropen Radio Network, broadcasting from the heart of Oregon, Salem's capital. Thank you for joining me today. Been a while since I've been in the studio, but here we are in Studio A. We will be back in Studio 1 in the next show. For our next show, we're discussing the Amphibian Terror that happens to deal with the Loveland Frogman, happens to deal with the kappa. I guess you could say anything that could be a reptilian, anything that could be amphibian, but really, the kappa doesn't strike me as a amphibian. This strikes me as a turtle, a humanoid turtle of some sort. And I have to wonder, how much of this is really just myth and legend? Is there something to it, something we can go off of? From a biblical perspective, I always like to add that twist to it. I'm assuming for a moment we're just going to put all this other stuff aside, all right, and assume something like this could potentially be real, all right? Regardless what you think, we're putting that aside. All bets are off now. Let's assume this creature is real. Let's assume that all these accounts come from history because people have been seeing something like this. As we know, when it comes to this field, people have seen reptiloids, humanoid creatures on two legs, bipedal in nature. And most of these beings tend to be deceiving, destructive. They come across friendly to lure you in. And you'd say, well, how do you know they're not a friend to us? Well, let's look at their traits. We just talked about some of their traits. The fact that they like to rape women, the fact that they like to look up kimonos, the fact that they love to eat the flesh of little children. Now, this is not something of God. If a creature like this really existed out there, I put this in the category of the unclean spirits of the earth. Luke 11:24-26, King James Version. When the unclean spirit is gone out of man, he walketh through the dry places seeking rest, and finding none. He saith, I'll return unto my house whence I came out. And when he cometh, he findeth and sweepeth and garnished. Then goeth he, and taketh to him 7 other spirits, more wicked than himself. And they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of the man is worse than the first. All right. A creature like this wants you to pay respect to it. Okay. And a lot of these things come about because I believe human beings have the power to manifest these beings. If it's a part of history and it's forgotten, how does it resurge? How does it make a resurgence into society? Probably because it's more well-known. Probably because people are starting to talk about it more. The reason I talk about things like this on this show is to warn you of the dangers of such things. And then I'll probably let sleeping spirits lie. Okay. I think that these things are manifesting because people want them to come back. People can conjure them. The power of suggestion is very powerful. If this is a culture that's saying, hey, we want these spirits, the more you talk about it, the more you just call it out. These things start to appear. They start to be seen. Remember, we just talked about the unclean spirits. The Bible mentions that there are spirits of the rivers, there are spirits of the land, and there are spirits of the sky. But there are also spirits outside of our earthly realm, which can deal with space. And these spirits can roam freely because they have all power to do so. They are not confined to our physical realm. And these spirits manifest according to what we want them to manifest as. And a great analogy of this, even though it sounds really odd or ridiculous, I'm just going to point it out because it has some truth there. If you go back to the movie Ghostbusters, when they're getting ready to fight the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Gozer had told them, if you think about it, it's going to manifest. And they were trying to empty their minds, not think about this thing. Lo and behold, it manifests as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. As outlandish as that sounds, look, guys, the spirit realm is real. And these things can be conjured if we're not careful. And they don't just manifest as spirits. They can manifest as a solid manifestation. They can be physical, they can be spiritual. And they will come about according to what the culture wants them to be. Does that make sense? Some possible theories that we can look at here are the accounts from the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch. These are important pieces to understand what we're dealing with in our supernatural realm. And this is, make no mistake, a supernatural world that we live in. If you look at the Bible, there were a lot of events that dealt with supernatural events that took place because it's real. I know that some would look at what the History Channel's put out as far as ancient aliens. I think that's absolute BS. A lot of these so-called programs will like to ditch or put aside anything that has to do with Scripture, when Scripture can answer all these questions. Now, Ron Moorhead is investigator in all things Sasquatch. Ron is the author of Sierra Sounds. Ron and others believe that the cryptids and Sasquatch are Nephilim because of some of their chronicle-shaped heads. Not all of them have this. Also, that there has been a breeding program. In other words, you go back to the Gimlin-Patterson footage, and that's one thing. The 1950s and 70s were hot times for sightings involving cryptids. You fast forward to 2023, sightings are through the roof. So, are frogmen and other cryptids the Therion, the beasts of the earth? It's a strong possibility. I would agree with a lot of this. Now, Jesus also understood the manifestation of water spirits. We just talked about how there are spirits on the earth, there are spirits in the water, there are spirits in the sky, space. One time as Jesus crossed over the sea, a furious storm arose as water spirits were trying to overturn the boat. In their natural state, rocks, trees, and water, etc., give glory to God, Psalms 148. These would not normally challenge God and the authority of Jesus Christ unless the water spirits have inspired them, Matthew 8, verse 23 through 27. If it was a natural, godly storm, Jesus would not rebuke something from his Father. He knew that the storm was an evil manifestation of water spirits. It is also reasonable to conclude that in the same account, the water spirits possessed Gardarine, the demon-possessed man. So I think we're coming to an end here, folks, an understanding here. Is this myth? Is this legend? Is it both? It's definitely history. And I'm a little puzzled by the frogman encounters of Ohio. Nonetheless, I do want to venture to the Little Miami area and see what I can find out. I'd love to check out the local sites. Something about these rural areas and these communities really spark a lot of interest in me, but it isn't Loveland that's the main purpose for me. I really want to go because of that Little Miami River. I believe there's activity there that could be living prehistoric activity. And I think it's worthy of an investigation. What do you think of the Kappa? Is this a legend that should be feared? Is it something that's real? Is it myth? Is it legend? Or is it an unclean spirit that actually is real? Something to really consider. It would be neat to reach out to Sam Jacobs, who took that picture of the frogman, and see what his personal thoughts are. I know that he's spoken to other people. Would he be willing to speak to me? And Sam, if you're listening, contact me. Reach out to us at ropentracker@gmail.com, ROPEN tracker@gmail.com. Ready to hear your story. Folks, thank you so much for joining me on the network today. We'll be back real soon in Studio One. But in the meantime, seek the truth. We'll see you next time on the Ropen Radio Network. Frog with pants. Frog with pants. And the wand. And the wand. I can already see the visual image.
The RRN Ropen Radio Network is brought to you by 511 Tactical. Always be ready. By OMSI, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, inspiring scientific study. By Creation Evidence Museum of Texas, God's Work in 6 days. And by the Wildlife Safari, America's top cheetah breeding program. You are closer to Africa than you think.